Entertainment, we celebrate the 43-year reign of the speed metal kings, Metallica. With 9 Grammy Awards and 14 nominations, 38 concert tours worldwide, and 11 studio albums that span 4 decades, the Titans of Thrash remain the standard by which all other metal is measured. We begin with a 1984 classic from their second album, For Whom the Bell Tolls, followed by the 1992 tour anthem, Wherever I May Roam. And then, let's turn down the house and light up the stage with the Auburn University Marching Band and their show, Metallica.
Sunday night has returned once again, and that means it's time for another live recording of the Auburn Experience podcast, the flagship show of everything we do here at E2C Network. Let's get into a bunch of different things tonight. Auburn potpourri news coming your way, as well as a recap of Auburn basketball, and of course, all of the fun Portal-palooza stuff that we had this week, folks. Saddle up. We got a lot to get through. Let's get into episode 122. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. We can quantify it, we can qualify it through a variety of methods, time, people, places, and things. But at its heart, at its core, it is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it might be if it's orange and blue. It's what we do. So thank you so much for joining us and what we're going to do for episode 122 of the Auburn Experience podcast. I'm back with you as always. Part one or two, whichever way you want to categorize me. One co-host, Kyle Loomis, and as always with me, Mr. Austin Scott, back on the Auburn Experience podcast. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you. War Eagle Kyle, War Eagle to our viewers and listeners. Happy Easter to you and your families. I hope you've had a beautiful day celebrating the best news known to man. And so happy to be here on Easter Sunday with you, friend.
Happy Sunday, Easter, Resurrection Day, whichever name you want to apply to it. It doesn't matter how you want to categorize it as long as you give it the right type of categorization. This is the greatest day that ever has been known in mankind, the day that all of our sins, all of our transgressions, past, present, future, were all wiped away with the sacrifice of God's Son, Jesus, on the cross for us. And his resurrection today. So we are excited about that, of course, and hope that everybody got to certainly spend time with family. It's a very family-oriented holiday, but obviously there's much deeper meaning behind that. We hope all of you understand the meaning behind it, and we're always going to take the opportunity on Easter to remind you of that, and would love to ever talk with you about that if you have thoughts, confusion, or just want to, revel in the fact about what we have in the gift of Jesus and what he did for us, dying on that cross and raised to life again on the third day. All right, enough with the sermon. My late father probably would have done a much better job with that. But maybe I channeled a little bit of him there in trying to have a little bit of mini sermon on a Sunday evening when we're recording this. Episode 122. I know I say it all the time, folks. We have a lot to talk about, but boy, do we this week, because Auburn was trying to kill me with news this week. I literally would get one thing done and then the next thing would drop. Yes, we're going to talk about portal stuff. That is going to come up towards the end of it, but we are going to also take some time to reminisce. But first, let's go through Auburn potpourri. Still plenty of cool things to talk about in there. We are going to spend this portion of the show in a quicker fashion talking about Auburn Diamond sports, Auburn baseball and Auburn softball. And after we got talking, Austin, last week about just the great week it was, the weekend this time wasn't so great all the way around in the Diamond sports, but context is always important here. Not only were both teams on the road, both teams were facing, one was facing a number 1 team, the other was facing a number 4 team. And those present some challenges as well. Certainly in a lot of those games, Auburn was competitive, but a much different weekend. So I guess maybe just let's start with baseball really quickly, getting swept completely by Texas. The last game is not their best showing, but they had them on the ropes in game 1 and almost kind of set this thing up for a very interesting weekend. Number 1 Texas out in Austin. So I was really disappointed when they weren't able to hold on to that lead in the first game.
Yeah, game 1 was a heartbreaker. I think, like you said, that you had the chance to set the tone there, come in on the road to a number 1 team and kind of continue your momentum. you lose the game late, and then it just kind of never recovers from there. It felt like it was Texas versus Ike Irish on the offensive side of the plate, as his homers. Ike Irish had a good time in Austin, but his homers accounted for really a lot of the only offense Auburn had this weekend.
Sure.
But you run into a buzzsaw, and I think it's a similar case with Auburn softball and Knoxville, two really, really good programs that just quite aren't where you're at right now. Still having a lot of success, and you're still trying to build moving forward in the season.
Yeah.
But you just run into a buzzsaw on the road, and that happens sometimes. It's especially going to happen in this conference.
Well, and you're facing the number one team, and it's why I cautioned a lot of people. And I'm so happy that there's more discussion happening about Auburn baseball, especially after last year. But we have this tendency as fans to, when a trend starts happening, to start building that hype wagon a little bit. And I think it's important just to kind of put things in context, see what happens. And I say that having just been swept by Texas, because I don't think that this is a sign that was all a fluke. I do not. I think their resume speaks for itself. I think they had Texas a little worried in game one. They said, oh, this team actually might be the team that knocks us off from the start that we have. If they get this game one, they're going to be really feeling the energy. They're going to throw Cade Fisher out there in game two and really be looking to put this thing away for a series win and shock us. So they hammer down, put Auburn away, and they do what number one teams do, as we know about a little bit in other sports this year. Softball, you mentioned, certainly not a lot of success in results there. Much closer games at times. The big thing was the Malveaux returning to Tennessee, where they came from as assistant coaches, and a lot of emotions there, a lot of that playing into that. Certainly, I know they wanted to come away with a little bit more, but you got to think that was a very special thing for them.
Yeah, a little bit of a homecoming, and got to see a lot of friends and faces that they're obviously very familiar with. So that is, I hope it was a good teaching moment for them with the team of they were able to help build that. They know what it was like. They knew what they were walking into, and hopefully it's, for the players who are younger, maybe a sign of what that Auburn can get to under the Malveaux. So we'll have to see. But we'll get there. It was a rough weekend. But like you said, I don't take away anything of where this team is where we were, either team, that we were just a fluke last weekend, or that it was something, just a one-time hit. I think that it's unfortunate you carry that momentum, but you just run into some really good programs.
Yeah. Buzzsaw is the key word. And as I saw, you struggled a little bit with the coach's Malveaux, I tell you, coach's Malveaux.
Whatever.
That's how you say it. I'm telling you, we're going to make that stick here. We got plenty of other opportunities coming weeks to talk about them. Certainly, this is not a fun one, but that's what happens when you play in the SEC, and baseball and softball don't matter. It's a tough world out there sometimes. That's right. Let's talk a little bit about some general Auburn sports topics, while this will carry a lot for football, especially as the cash cow in all of college sports, but especially for Auburn. But this is a athletics wide announcement this day, and it kind of got thrust in there with a lot of other news this week. So I feel like we would have had a lot more discussions on social media this week had it not been such a busy week. Auburn announces a 10-year extension or new partnership, but I believe we can categorize as an extension with Playfly Sports, which is going to be multimedia rights partnership. And here's a quick little blurb from them, and then we'll talk about it. I think Austin's got some good insights probably about that. Long-term extension includes the launch of Playfly Max, which sounds like a streaming platform, which is everybody's got these days, and I'm sure it probably is in some sense, and an expanded on-campus staff to drive innovative revenue strategies, elevate student-athlete support, and enhance partnership services. I think it's hard, if you just heard that for the first time, to pinpoint what this is, unless you know what Playfly already is, the company that essentially manages like Andy and that staff. But it sounds like, Austin, it's going to be much more than that potentially. So any insights that you might have, or just thoughts and opinions about this new extension/deal?
Yeah, first off, it sounds like it's a really great opportunity, and you got a good thing going with Playfly, who is, like you mentioned, kind of been over the Auburn Sports Network for radio with Andy Burcham, Brad Law, Britt Browen, Ben Harling, all those really good guys who have done a great job keeping the Auburn coverage on the airwaves and doing it at such a professional level. But it definitely sounds like in this new era of college athletics we're in, that it's going to expand a little bit and be able to kind of have some more staff, that kind of help support the NIL efforts. We haven't gotten into it on our show. Maybe that's something coming up when there's some resolution in Washington on the House settlements
good
of
luck
NIL.
with that.
Yeah.
Good luck.
So that's either next week or like 5 years from now. Who knows? And anywhere in between. But, there's a lot coming down the pipe for college athletics. And I think this is another way Auburn's taken a step to be ready for that and mitigate that when it comes and do the best that they can for their student athletes. I think what we're really going to see in these scenarios with Playfly and with the helping student athletes through their NILs, we're probably going to get back to a little bit more of what NIL was intended for it, and and finding ways for these student athletes to be brand ambassadors, be the faces of certain brands, and do certain posts and names and whatever commercials for whoever, and truly be profiting off of their name, image, and likeness, not just pay for play like it seems to have become.
Yeah, and I think that's a credit to Auburn and Playfly for, getting out ahead of this and starting to get themselves lined up so they can be positioned to do whatever happens in Washington, if anything ever happens in Washington.
Yeah.
I think it's a wise thing. Like I said, I think this is a news story that had a little bit of pop to it, but because of everything else happened, it kind of got lost in there. And it's a very big, nebulous announcement. But I think we all recognize what's happening here. This is a continuation of what you're used to in your coverage of Auburn. But it's also, as you said, and as they said in that blurb, integrating some of this stuff, what it was intended to be in NIL. Streamline is a big phrase here, I think, and what I would take away from it in terms of this brand new partnership. So 10 years looks like we're secure for a long, long time. And hopefully this next 10 years will be a little less crazy in the sports NIL multimedia world than it has been for probably the last 10 years. We'll see though. But for now, everything looks secure and ready to go for Auburn athletics. Switching gears a little bit, we love to talk about Auburn food here. And there are so many great places. So please hear me. Every business of the food persuasion in Auburn, we're not picking favorites. Hint, hint. But
we can pick a favorite though if you want to hit Kyle up. So
we can pick favorites.
Our favorite can be in a logo right there.
It's right up there. Sorry, it's over this way. I know I got to get the mirroring thing down. But what I'm saying is this: we certainly will always talk about really cool things, especially for some of those very Auburn places. And Mama G's is one of those places.
Absolutely. And gotta have your mama's love.
You gotta have your mama's love. And I'm just telling you right now, when I heard breakfast, Mama G's, it's like, can it get better to be an Auburn fan? I mean, like, just so what else do you want? I mean,
so and I'm going to take some responsibility on this because I'm the resident here, but I should have told you at some point that there's the new Mama G's on Glendine.
Thank you for
does breakfast. Does some breakfast, and it's very good, good stuff. But as you're alluding to, the OG, the original,
VG
is going to be doing the breakfast from now on, and I think it's a great move. I'm excited for it.
Can I just tell you? I was aware that the other sites or another site was already doing that from RGs and hadn't made it over that way but there was one game day this week last year, and I had misread and thought it was going to be there, and I walked a very long way to not have anything, and I was very not upset with them, upset with myself.
You thought it was going to be at the OG?
The OG. I thought I thought something I read, which was not. It was that's on me, not on Mama G's. That
I got you.
I walked a long way and was very disappointed that I wasn't going to get to try it on a college football game day. But
not a problem any further.
Not a problem any further. It is there, folks. Go support them in that aspect. It's something they're innovating and trying in, and certainly a lot of that menu looks so good, just like their regular menu.
The biscuits are good stuff, and you would hope so at a place that sells sandwiches. The bread would be on par, but some good biscuits. So check it out.
Good carbs all the way around.
Always.
And listen, when you do it in a historic and very nostalgia-driven venue like that little old building right there sitting on Magnolia.
Little shack.
Oh, man, just got the good Auburn vibes going all the way around. Lastly, let's mention this. Obviously, basketball is done. The main basketball to talk about. But one of the great things in the past few years has been the basketball tournament, or TBT, and what has arisen out of what was originally Tampa 2020 and then became war ready when Auburn adopted this team.
I
And
forgot it was Tampa 2020.
Listen, that's what happens when you've been doing this for long, is like you got just useless information stored up here. It's not useless for them. It's just, everybody's like, why do you remember that? I was like, that's because this is my job.
It was. That's what it started as. I now that you say that, I remember it. That was how we all jumped on board.
And that's what you do. If you attach something Auburn to it, you build it, we will come to it.
We'll follow.
We will follow. So that's continued on. Certainly varying levels of success. Made it past the first round last year again. Wendell Green was a big success for them adding him last year. He definitely turned some heads and doing and what he's playing in right now as well. But he was the first player, as far as I could tell, announced for the War Ready roster this year. Also, a new name, Antoine Mason. That's a little bit of a throwback in the Bruce Pearl era, but certainly one that was a very prominent player here when he was arriving. LaRon Smith is still on staff / player coach. I don't know what his role is officially yet, and certainly we'll get a little bit more familiar as it gets closer. But those are the two names that I know of right now. What you think about the two boys that we officially at least have announced?
Good start, right? I think it's a huge win that Wendell's back. Like you said, he turned a lot of heads last year. Logo win. It's kind of the setup made for him, his kind of play, right?
Oh yeah.
I think if I remember right, I think was like right after they got out last year, he had a new deal.
Yeah,
playing like where he's at now. So it worked out for him. But good to see he's coming back. And like you said, Antoine Mason. I think it's been 10 years since he was on the Plains, but obviously with KT and that one of those first building blocks of the Bruce Pearl tenure. Is going to be fun to see him back in the orange and blue and as a good veteran role. So we'll see. It's always fun to see who might come out and who might be added again. Hopefully they get them going. The more success Bruce Pearl has, yes, we want our guys to go to the NBA. Yes, we want them to get drafted, have all the success in the world. But the floor is being raised for our War Ready team. So hopefully we'll get some more additions announced soon.
Yeah, and I think those will be in the coming days. This is in the summer, and summer is quickly approaching. If y'all haven't known from the weather, that's quickly warming up here in the
gosh.
South. But yeah, that's always an exciting thing to carry us over through summer while we're all waiting for the collegiate sports calendar to get kicked back up. So be looking forward to that and excited to support War Ready yet again this year in the basketball tournament. Let's move on to our first major topic this evening. We not warned you, because this is a good thing. This is a good thing that we would eventually come around once the season had ended, and we covered a few other things last episode, to a full recap of the men's basketball season for Auburn basketball 2024-25. Is it okay, Austin? Can we talk about it? Or is 2 weeks separation good enough to get over the hurt and such?
Yeah, well, a little bit. It's I'm getting choked up.
They're all choked up. Listen, he was even last week not able to enjoy, to some extent, one shiny moment, which just hurt me a little bit. So I get it. You can be choked up if you want.
I just had a tickle in my throat there, the Easter Bunny.
A little misty in the room, a little misty.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 2 weeks, right? But, you wanted so bad for them to be the last team standing. Doesn't happen this year, but there's so much to recap from November that we have to get going. So, and hopefully we'll jog a lot of people's good memories.
Yes. So we have no really set agenda in this other than we're going to follow the progression of the year. We've done this in previous season recaps, and certainly this is a season that you want to go back to and recap a ton, because Auburn, this year, what they accomplish on the court, what they overcame at times is pretty incredible. What a year it was. So take me back to preseason, Austin. Let's start there. I know we've got the context of now what's happened, what's transpired, and what's transpiring in the offseason already. Where were you in your thought process about where this team might end up in terms of potential?
Yeah, this is where you're supposed to play our clips of what we predicted, right? This, you're gonna.
If I was a good producer, that would happen.
You're gonna add this in there,
probably
post production. I'm just kidding. I think we both said like 4 or 5 losses in non-conference, right? 3 or 4 maybe. We were off by 1, like our own, you and I, what we predicted. But we knew it would be tough. That was the real storyline going into non-conference, right?
And to clarify, we said 3 or 4 losses total, didn't we? Or is that just non-conference?
I thought it was just non-conference because I think then we said SEC was.
You're right. I'm just see. This is helping me right now. Think
Yeah, it's
back
okay.
to it. But okay, 3 to 4. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Which
Keep
would
going.
be like 6 or 8 total, which is now what we know now is hilarious to think about. But the whole storyline was this is the hardest non-conference schedule ever. This is a gauntlet. Auburn's trying to prepare itself for tournament play, and they did. But they quickly established themselves as the best team in college basketball. So like preseason expectations, no, I don't think either of us thought what was going to happen ended up happening. But this team with a bunch of new faces came together so quickly and had things working from the get-go.
I think the biggest thing for me in the preseason thoughts was, I'm just going to use the running gag that's the only thing that opposing fans can use on us now these days is, oh, you're old. And that's a really big thing in college basketball, folks. The more mature, I use that term loosely, mature in terms of experience and in terms of all of that, the better your chances tend to be in the postseason because you've been through it, you know what to expect, you know how to lead the younger players, and Auburn had that and then some. So in my opinion, if everything had lined up, and it did, Auburn was well positioned to find itself where it ended up in the Final Four. I did not predict Final Four. I felt pretty securely within myself that we not only would make it to the Sweet 16, but the Elite Eight, and the results began to line that up right there. And obviously there wasn't any big trips or anything like that in the preseason, so wasn't a lot to take away from. But that brings us to the non-conference, which you already kind of set up for us a little bit. What a historic season. And whether it was Mike Burgomaster and everybody else in the staff that was involved getting that lined up, you and I during the offseason just gushed about the Maui Invitational. We talked about the Duke matchup. We talked about Purdue. We talked about Houston. We talked about Ohio State in the Atlanta matchup. Who am I forgetting? There's got to be some others that were the major ones, or is that all the big players?
You mentioned Maui, right?
Maui with everybody that was there. Auburn, sweeps that, wins that one outright. Once you got past the Iowa State game there, it was pretty easy walking for Auburn. That was the craziest thing for me, Austin, in non-conference, was the fact that Auburn, outside of Duke, really just put people away in the non-conference in that difficult. And we know it wasn't just speculative because all of those teams that we were talking about outside of like Ohio State didn't make it or made it to the playoffs. Yes, but the tournament,
right?
So, I mean, what a non-conference schedule. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I know you did too.
Yeah. I mean, you look at all of those teams. Houston ended up playing it for a national title, was darn near close to winning one. Purdue had an incredible year, and Auburn dismantled them in Birmingham. The Maui teams all did well. Iowa State got knocked out early, but were a top 3 seed. Obviously, Duke made the Final Four. Just a gauntlet that you look back and you think there's no way they got out of that with one loss, and they did. And we were saying there's no way going into it they get out of that with 3 losses, and they did. So like you said, this team gelled so quickly. And I think, as we kind of transition and talking about SEC play, even through that, we're all wondering, is this sustainable? Like, is this something that are they peaking too early is the fun phrase to say, right? Is this something where they can really keep this up? But Janai Broome establishes himself as a player of the year candidate throughout the non-conference, really in Maui, and then it just continued. And it just felt like every night, it felt like our show every week, we were talking about someone else stepping up, but Janai Broome being the consistent role player through injuries, not role player, but consistent in his role, through injuries and through whatever else was going on as Auburn's leader. And they get through that non-conference of just an absolute gauntlet looking into it. And then now on the other side of it, looking back, to come away with one loss on the road at Duke is pretty wild.
And you look about Auburn's season was this. There were so many benchmarks that Auburn had to meet and face a test on to prove, not just based off of one player, but as a team, how good they were. They went through the non-conference and had controversies. We can talk about it if you want to, but it's really not it's a moot point at this point. Didn't matter in the season, and it doesn't matter anymore with things, transfer portals we'll talk about later. But you go overcome that. Janai gets his first big injury at the end of non-conference play. He has more throughout it and still overcomes it. And even when Janai is either not 100% or not playing, there's really no true drop-off. Certainly when you lose the National Player of the Year at those times in the season, you would expect a big drop-off. But yet there really wasn't a quantifiable one. So I think it speaks to the measure of how good this team was throughout the season, which carries it into what is ironically the more difficult part of this season. Not because SEC basketball hasn't been, respectable or good over the last several years, but because of what we just set up, that amazing non-conference and what they accomplished in that non-conference schedule. The SEC, it's not even up for debate anymore, was the best conference this year across the board in results and in the ultimate result too. And the best two in it were the last two SEC teams, Florida and Auburn. I never thought that this conference schedule would be more difficult than what the non-conference was. I would have laughed at you. So Austin, if you come on the show, I might've kicked you off if you said something ridiculous like that. Auburn just makes its way through the SEC for the majority of the season. Certainly Florida was as we eventually found out, is a buzzsaw and was the first bump in the road there. But really, because of the way they started and overcame that first bump in the road, Auburn set itself up to win the SEC outright in the regular season early on. I mean, it was pretty much theirs for a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it felt that way going through the season, that this conference and the pedigree of it and the status of it from top to bottom was one of the best we've ever seen. Then you look at I think it was 5 Elite Eight teams, 2 of the Final Four. The SEC ended up proving itself to be the toughest conference in the league or in the country from top to bottom. And Auburn, like you said, starts out strong enough to win it with a week to go, 2 weeks to go. Mm-hmm. And so, I would have never guessed either that the SEC would be this strong in basketball, sure, but all at one time this year. And for Auburn to come out on top is what I'll remember the most. I really think about this year is that the SEC was as strong as it's ever been. And Auburn was able to win it really going away. Now, I know they didn't win the SEC tournament. I know they didn't win a national title. I totally understand all that. They'll still get a banner and a ring. So I really don't have anything to say to that rebuttal. But, there's no question and debate. No one's arguing that the SEC wasn't the toughest in the league in the country this year. Yeah. And the facts are the facts that Auburn won it going away. It's a major testament when you look at the body of work from the conference this year.
Yeah, and people want to talk about because whether it was the tournament as a whole or the two best teams in the SEC, one that won the regular season, one that won the tournament, ended up being the final two SEC teams out of that historic conference this year. Some people are saying best conference performance of any season ever. Certainly, I think that can be a little hyperbolic. However, the results kind of speak for themselves about
it's up there. I think it's arguable enough. Yeah.
And Auburn not just helped, but for the longest time, and probably the majority of the time, shaped the course of this entire season for the SEC. Certainly, Florida deserves their congratulations for the national title at the end of things. But, man, they had to get through Auburn, and that was not an easy thing to do this year. So that brings us to the postseason, which certainly had a lot of discussions around Auburn had peaked too soon. Auburn was struggling. Somebody's going to catch them. And then when you looked at how the number 1 overall seed for the very first time, it's historic in and of itself, but I think it's also historic that the number 1 overall team in the tournament somehow, by the own metrics of this selection show, gets put in a region that has the most difficulty. I still laugh when I have people that argue with Auburn wasn't in the most difficult region. I'm like, the literal selection show showed it on the screen. Who had the most one? And you can't argue with that, whether you have emotions or you're just not being logical at that point. It speaks in the results. Having to get through Alabama State, who was getting off the high of their first big win, Creighton coming out and shooting lights out. Mm-hmm. That was probably the scariest one, honestly. Michigan with Trey Donaldson reunion, also Danny Wolf, also KT Harrell. And then you had Michigan State and Tom Izzo. Austin, did I tell you that I love this basketball season? I kind of want to cry about it. Like, this was the best basketball season ever, and the postseason was just like the chef's kiss, cherry on top, whatever. I know we didn't get to the mountaintop, but you got to the Final Four. You got a regular season tournament. Does whatever you want to say about the postseason, but does what happened ultimately ruin what they accomplished in the postseason before the final ending in the Final Four?
No, I mean, and I mean, in the moment now, we're still 2 weeks off of it. Sure, we all wanted that national championship. We all wanted to see them play for one. And it's hard not to be upset about that. I'm totally honest, and I totally get that feeling. However, to be the number 1 overall seed for the first time in program history, let's not forget where Auburn basketball has been in the past. For Auburn basketball to be the number 1 overall seed in all of the tournament, and then to run through an incredibly difficult region with an in-state opponent, with Creighton, a basketball powerhouse name, Michigan with all the connections, and then Michigan State and Tom Izzo. It is a run that is not. I don't think it's as dramatic and as memorable, the run itself memorable as 2019 because of all the names and all the surprise factor with the 2019 team. But it's a tournament run where Auburn was the number 1 overall seed and showed it and proved it the entire time, and got back to the Final Four. One Final Four was miraculous enough for Auburn basketball. To make it a second is a trend, as we've talked, and that is the standard of being an elite team. And they met it. They met it totally and easily. It's a special team and a special run I won't forget for a while.
Yeah, listen, we have fun with the whole blue blood thing because we know it gets under the skin of all the blue bloods, but we are the new bloods, and we ain't going anywhere. Bruce Pearl ain't going anywhere. We're here to stay, boys and girls, and you better get used to it because the Auburn Tigers, whether it's Final Four again next year or not even making the tournament, they'll get back there eventually. I'm convinced of that. And what a season this was, getting there. That Florida game, Auburn had it in the palm of their hands. Yeah. Certainly, what I take solace in is how you get manhandled at home by Florida, and you, at a neutral site, give them everything they have. It literally takes a outstanding game from their best player to pull them over.
I can't do it. I cannot. I cannot remember it.
I understand. I'm just saying that's what it took to keep Auburn from going to Houston, going into that game and playing Houston. And I'm convinced, as we saw with the results earlier, that if Auburn had played Houston, they would have won easily. Ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. There's my saying. Okay, I get it, but that's what I'm convinced of. You can't prove me wrong because you'll never be able to prove me wrong on that one. But he made a Final Four, the second in history, the second for Bruce Pearl. Historic season. Final question on this. It's the big topic that started way too early, even at the very tail end of the season. Some people were just like obsessed about this question. I think still it's a fair statement to say 2 weeks out from the season, 2-3 weeks ending, maybe still a little premature, but at least we've got some time away from it to let the disappointment of not getting there to the final game die off. And I think we could revisit this. But the big question, is this Auburn's best basketball team of its entire history?
I think yes. I think there's only a couple other teams that have the merit to stand in an argument. I think 19 is certainly one of those. I do think Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler's year is certainly one of those. I think,
1999
certainly stands there. But I think with this team, and you look at the entire collective body of work from really starting, top 15.
Yep.
And finding their way to number 1 really early, holding it for a very long time, ended up being number 1 the rest of the way through, and then making a Final Four collectively as an entire start to finish. I think this is the best Auburn basketball team in program history.
I think it is as well. Certainly, I want to revisit it. Hopefully, not too long in the distant future, but certainly when some more time has passed. The big things that mark the comparison for me are where did each team end up, and both ended up at the Final Four. The story, as you pointed out, is a little bit different of how they got there. And I think the resume of what Auburn 2024-25 season had to get through holistically is probably a little tougher. I think the makeup of the team is definitely a little bit different, a little bit more older, a little bit, maybe a little bit larger too. So you would be interested to see how that plays into that. But here's the thing about that 2019 team. When they got on a streak, man, there was no stopping them. They just, when that team was hot, very similar to some Alabama teams now, as much as I hate to bring that up here, when they are just shooting lights out, nobody's going to beat them. But if they're not, you might have a shot at it. Or you could get certain referees to miss calls, but suddenly make calls a second later. Anyway, I digress. I do think right now where I'm sitting at, we just witnessed Auburn's best team, best men's basketball season of all time. And I never thought that I never thought that I would be sitting on a podcast doing this, first of all, for something like this, back when Clint and I first started doing Inside the Jungle together. And we started it because Bruce Pearl arrived in halfway through non-conference. I think Texas Tech was our first game we did. I just sat there and was like, it's just going to be fun. We're going to have I think we're going to get better. He'll lead us to some success. But you and I are sitting here 10 years later, 10-ish years later, talking about 2 Final Fours.
It's pretty wild.
Best team ever. I think right now the jury has decided the verdict, but we'll see if time changes that and history changes that. That's going to do it for that topic. Let's move into our last main topic this evening. And it was enough for this week. If there was nothing else to talk about this week, we probably could have just spent the entire show talking about the transfer portal. And I say it like that because it echoes, because it just stays wide open for some people. And then people start coming back returning and all this stuff. We got a lot to talk about here, folks, because it is men's basketball, football, a little bit of women's too, if we can get to all of that. So I know where we got to start, where people want to have discussions about, and that is the men's basketball team makeup of it and what this transfer portal has been this last week. So let me give a little timeline, and then we'll start talking about the new stuff. Right now, we're sitting on Sunday evening, the 20th, Easter Sunday, discussing what has currently transpired. Tahad entered the draft, still there, still has his eligibility, folks. Some of you need to make sure that you're doing your research on that before you congratulate him for coming back or assume that he's not coming back. Ja'Kai Howard went to the portal. As of today, he has decided to go to Utah. So Ja'Kai Howard will no longer be here. We appreciate his time. Hopefully he finds success over there at Utah. This is where, and then Keyshawn Hall already came into the mix. I should have put that before as the first transfer in during the season. Well, I shouldn't say that. Bashir had already come in, but the first kind of this new wave towards the end of the season that came in. The big one this weekend that got things going. A lot of rumors out there was going to happen. I didn't believe it myself. And then he broke my heart this week. Chad Baker-Mazara goes into the transfer portal. Would you care to mention anything about that, or anything you want to say?
I mean, I think that it definitely wasn't expected for a lot of people, and kind of came as a surprise. I don't think it came as a surprise totally to Auburn's staff. I think that there's a lot of speculation, a lot of reasons that maybe we all want to throw out there. At the end of the day, the thing I don't like the most is certain fans, orange and blue, otherwise saying, okay, now we can all admit, we don't. Chad was enough. Chad was too much of a troublemaker. No, Chad Baker-Mazara was a great player for Auburn men's basketball. He was a great player on the greatest team of all time in Auburn men's basketball history, as we just got done talking about. Whatever reasons, this is the world we live in the transfer portal era. Him leaving does not change anything he did for me at Auburn. I appreciate what he did. I think his talents at Auburn were on full display. I don't agree with him choosing to leave, but for whatever reason he has chosen to leave, and we wish him the best, except when he's playing Auburn. So I hate it. I don't think it's the right decision for Auburn or for Chad Baker-Mazara, but it is what it is. And look, he is not, like, as Kyle mentioned, he is not committed anywhere else, so we don't know if he
as of right now.
Back. Look, we're doing the show live, so you can probably expect a commitment from Chad anytime soon now.
It's probably going to happen.
But, I don't know if he'd be welcome back. I don't know if he wants to come back, but we'll have to see what happens. I wish him the best. and I really appreciate his time here. But Auburn's got to move on and do what's best for them as well.
Yeah, certainly. And I do wish him well as well. I do agree with you. I don't think it's the wise choice for him. However, here's the thing, folks, and some of you need to realize, we don't know what's going on in these kids' lives. I know I use kid for Chad loosely, right? He's very, as the fans will say, he's an old, he should be getting a job right now. Can y'all get some new material? Seriously, like, come on. Like, it's just sad.
He kind of is getting a job these days. That's
he is getting a job this day, and you're just jealous of it. That's what's really going on there when you make those statements. So don't act like it's not. So I do wish him well. I do not agree with his decision, but I can also agree and respect it in some ways and understand the context behind it. So I hope maybe one day we get over this part of this and we get to have Chad back for a big celebration, like the 10-year anniversary of this Final Four team. Really excited to see what that might look like, but certainly he is moving on. All right, we got to keep going here.
Yeah.
What a week. I'm going to give them for you, and then we can talk about them however you want to. We had 4, unless I'm missing someone, you correct me if I'm wrong, 4 transfer portal guys this week alone. Literally could not breathe.
For basketball.
For basketball. That we're just talking about basketball. First one from Mississippi State, probably a 4 or a 5 guy, Keyshawn, not Key, spelled Key, Sean Murphy. I made that mistake, and several others did as well.
It will not be the last time.
It will not be the last.
We'll see that a lot.
We will see it a lot, and it doesn't really matter. Like, I mean, some people got real uppity about it. I'm like, just let it go. It's a simple mistake. Okay, Keyshawn Murphy, Mississippi State, has arrived, followed by another big guy, Emeka Okporo from Butler Community College, probably your center. Then Kevin Overton from Texas Tech, pretty big name there, probably a 2, maybe 2-ish spot,
2, 3,
something like that. Elijah Freeman is the newest one, the freshest one as we're recording, from Lincoln Memorial, and a lot of people are excited about this guy. You're probably looking like 3, maybe 4. Whether you're talking about a certain position for one, let me start that over. If you are pigeonholing probably anyone on this roster outside of Emeka Okporo to one specific position, you are going to be incorrect. Versatility has been a staple in Bruce Pearl teams, and it continues so with this. So take the floor. Who do you want to talk about first? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, first of all, you don't think 7-footer Emeka Okporo can play point guard? Is that what you're telling me, Kyle?
If Simeon Bowers can play point guard and not look the most horrendous thing ever, a point forward, then I will not doubt Emeka Okporo. I'm just saying, listen, birds did not fly that day. Pigs flew that day. I will never forget doing that show. Simeon Bowers, I thought it was another message board cannon fodder thing. And I was like, there's no way that I'm about to see Simeon Bowers take the tip off and walk down the floor as the point guard. And it did. And I said, Bruce Pearl, what are you on about? To quote like our British friends, like that was what a day that was. Sorry, I know that was a huge tangent, but to this day, that is one of the wildest things that I've ever seen. And the wild that it wasn't stupid either.
Well, and it's the biggest case though in Bruce Pearl's tenure here. Versatility is the name of the game for him. 1 through 4, you're playing whatever we tell you to play. Right.
Exactly.
And now there's going to be some trends and some normals, what we expected most of the time. But hey, something happens, things hit the fan, then you might have to play another position. And so I think that he has always looked for those athletic guys. All these guys outside of probably Emeka make sense in that area.
Yeah.
I think that I think Kevin Overton from Texas Tech is a really intriguing guy. I think that he brings a lot of the leadership and elder versatility that we talked about with this team this year that was so important. A guy who can shoot it, a guy who is really mainly the 6th guy coming off the bench for Texas Tech.
I do that too, by the way. So you're not the
I don't know why. Like
similar colors.
Similar.
They're in Texas.
I've done it so many times, and it's just they don't sound the same, but I don't know.
That's what we're
so I think he plays that kind of role for Auburn where he has that older mentality, a guy who's just won a lot at Texas Tech, but can shoot it as well. I mean, I'm the same way. I think as a lot of people, I think Elijah Freeman, it can be the type of trajectory Chaney Johnson had, right? I think that's the easy comparison coming from the Division II level, a guy who really wants to prove himself. Was highly sought after, took visits to Auburn and Tennessee. Just someone who has the raw ability, but could be a star very soon.
Yep.
It would not surprise me if it's the same trajectory role as Chaney, where it takes a year and the second year, just everything clicks and he's a world beater. I think he's a really fun prospect for Auburn and Bruce Pearl to play around with, though.
Yeah, I'm really excited about him. As you brought up Kevin Overton. Emeka, as we've kind of touched on a little bit, he certainly feels like he fills out just a traditional center, but feels another guy like he's got a good trajectory. And here's the thing, a lot of these guys have some time left, and certainly you don't want to assume anybody's going to stick around forever, as we've learned, but that at least gives you the option to have them around at Auburn. You didn't bring up Keyshawn Murphy, and I know thank you for leaving him for me, because to me, I think it's easy to forget about him because he was the first one of this week, but you cannot underestimate what experience in the SEC, given that he was that big of a name at Mississippi State in this historic past year. That is huge. You got it. And he's a big guy too. He could play center for us too, and may even up playing that center position. But I think, it may be unfair to go ahead and throw Janai Broom and him and Brown in the same sentence, like in terms, not saying he's going to be a player of the year right away or anything like that. He's only got 1 year, but that role, that leadership, that replacing that so quickly with an SEC guy, I think is going to be huge. And I'm not even saying that he's going to score the same or rebound the same as Janai. I just think that is going to be a steady, experienced presence that you got to have on this team.
I think that he's the one of these four right here that'll have the most impact on the box score next year, just consistently.
Yeah,
he's already done it in the SEC. Mississippi State was a top half team in the league this year. It makes too much sense for him to come in and bring the leadership, but bring the style of experience SEC play that we're used to seeing from that spot on an Auburn team. So I think it'll be a seamless transition for him. Emeka, I would not be surprised is more of a developmental job. Just coming from a community college in Butler, and has done really well, but seems like just a bit of a raw talent. I think Bruce Pearl, Stephen Pearl, the staff are excited to get to work with him, train him up to could potentially be that Walker Kessler type of player who could just block everybody's shots and be a threat down low. So, I think it's a really good job by this staff. I cannot imagine how exhausted the staff is from coaching all the way up until 2 weeks ago, dealing with the emotional kind of come off of that, and then now pulling in a haul like this. And I don't think they're done. I think there's still spots to be had. Obviously, you still have Tahad and his decisions, but the staff just stays working, and they're doing a phenomenal job.
How many more? Let's assume Tahad comes back, because right now it really is a 50-50 decision probably, but I think a lot of people are considering it's highly possible he'll come back. Let's just assume he does. How many more do you think they take? One more?
I say one. I'm going to say one. I think it's a big guy.
I think one more is guaranteed. Tahad makes it 2 if he doesn't come back. It would not surprise me to find let me use it, Darren Scott, who also went into the transfer portal as well. A guy that I think came in, not a lot of people expected him to play a lot, but you got to have guys like that are going to be on the roster, that are looking for an opportunity and want to be part of a championship caliber team. So it wouldn't surprise me either to find someone as a walk-on or that's got a good pedigree to be brought in. But I think you and I both agree we ain't done yet, to quote our friend Trevon Reed. All right, last bit here. 2 things we got to hit. Definitely let's talk about football, because can I just real quick aside here for Auburn sports, Auburn athletics, can y'all please, and I acknowledge I'm just whining for no reason here. So please, this is really just for me and not really meant as a criticism of anybody at Auburn or in athletics, but I'm just going to complain about it. Can y'all please separate commitment announcements by more than like an hour? Like 3 and an hour and a half is a little excessive. Mind you, it's lunchtime in Alabama, where I was on a surprise visit to see my mother
on Easter
Sunday. Can I just have more than an hour and a half between 3? Yes.
Can he just eat some ham?
It wasn't even eating ham. I was at a sports bar of all places, and my goodness, I had just come off the week of just nonstop basketball transfer portal news, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a nice leisurely Easter. Nope. And I realize I'm complaining about good things, and these are first world problems, but I'm going to complain about it none the same. Give me a break sometimes, Auburn. Okay, football, 3 announcements today on Easter Sunday. Let's start with one that's apparently a preferred walk-on. Malachi Harris, offensive lineman out of Austin Peay. Didn't call him Austin Peay. I always do that. Austin Peay. He is the brother of Hezekiah Harris, who is a current commitment at linebacker for Auburn for 2026. Austin, is it unfair to assume that this may be a good way of securing Hezekiah? Is that unfair to assume that?
You know, you never know these days, and I hate to assume anything because you know what that does. But I think that it certainly helps, right?
Yes, I think that's definitely part of it play here. But here's the reality. You got to have bodies at offensive line because we've seen them go down like flies at times. And we got to have bodies in there to practice against, to rotate in. And you never know. Malachi might get here, get to playing with his brother. Well, I forget how much eligibility he has. I think a decent amount, actually. But I love family connections at Auburn. I think it's cool. They did on Siblings Day a good little post about the ones we have here, whether it's the Falks or somebody else. I love stories like this. So happy to have Malachi Harris. Caleb Wheatland was after that, like 20 minutes. Auburn, 30 minutes, whatever. Linebacker from Maryland, the Maryland pipeline for Auburn. What is going on here, Austin?
DJ Durkin likes the guys up there.
And
it's heavily defensive guys.
And it's not just Maryland, like the university. It's from the high school ranks as well.
St. Francis Academy, University of Maryland. We're just DJ Durkin likes those guys up there, and used to coach up there. Has some ties up there, so he likes what he sees. And Caleb Wheatland, a linebacker with all Big Ten experience, is a spot Auburn's been looking to add somebody. So
experience, yeah.
Nothing against Malachi Harris, who we just talked about, who I'm excited to see come to the Plains and be with his brother, but Caleb Wheatland fills a spot that Auburn has needed some experience and could make an impact right away.
It definitely will help that room along with some rising stars experience.
Yes.
You cannot discount that whether he starts or not. And coming from a power conference and Maryland pipeline continues for Auburn, which is just really weird to see. It's the new Arkansas for Auburn, where they used to dominate all the best out of there. And then finally, who says you can't go home again? Jay Hardy. Yes, you know that name. He was a former commitment and member of the Auburn team a few years back, defensive lineman at Liberty, has returned home to be with Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers. You don't get to talk about these stories that often, Austin, but it doesn't make them any less sweet. Jay Hardy comes home.
Yeah, and it's a weird overlap. Jay Hardy was here the 2020 season, which was Gus Malzahn's last season. So he wasn't here with Hugh Freeze. Right. He transfers to Liberty to be with Hugh Freeze during the Potato Head era at Auburn. And then next thing you know, Hugh Freeze, his coach, leaves him. He stays at Liberty another year. And next thing you know, he's coming back with Coach Freeze back to Auburn. A lot of really weird connections there, but happy to see Jay Hardy return in another position that needs some impact.
Yes, definitely a place of impact. Need bodies, need rotation guys, whether they're going to start or not. Familiar name. You got to love that storyline. Welcome back, Jay Hardy, to the Auburn Tigers. And finally, in our transfer portal segment, we are going to mention this here. Women's basketball, certainly we are looking forward to the new era under Coach Vickers. We talked last week about Miss Caballé, who signed on as the first commitment there. He didn't stop, by the way. And I kept asking Austin, did I miss somebody this week? But we've got not only a commitment, but someone who decided to come out of the transfer portal exodus that it was for Auburn women's basketball. Let's start right here. Once again, as always, if I mispronounce your name, I'm so sorry. This is just me and my Alabama accent. I will get it right eventually. Eric Angui. It
sounds good to me.
UCF. No, we can't thank Gus for that. He's not there anymore, folks. So those jokes are old. But certainly UCF is another one of those teams, being part of the Big 12 now, that has a lot more talent than they used to get. Let me run some numbers by you if you like them for the women's basketball team. How about 6'9"? Yeah. How you like them apples?
How you like them apples? That'll work. Yeah. I mean, I think she's officially now, after Soraya Daniels comes back. Sorry to blow your lead there.
You blew the lead, but go ahead.
I think that makes 3 on the roster as of right now, and so 6'9", that's a good start, and we're happy to have her. I think that
Sure.
We don't know a lot about Coach Vickers' strategy or strategic plan for how he likes to run offenses, defense, things like that. But 6'9", you can do a lot with that, no matter what you want to do.
Listen, I obviously with the differences between men and women, you don't get to talk about 6'9" plus a lot. And at Auburn, I don't think we've had anybody this tall in quite some time. Height doesn't get you everything,
right?
But it sure helps. So I'm really excited to see what she can do at Auburn. Certainly one of those pieces that catches your eye because she's standing up so tall there. And so I think that's a big thing in this building back process for Coach Vickers. And as you already alluded to, Soraya Daniels. Is it Soraya or is it Soraya Daniels?
I believe it's Soraya. Yes.
Soraya Daniels.
I could be wrong, but I feel pretty confident in that.
Obviously, the daughter of Coach Marquise Daniels at Auburn right now, and Auburn great. And when we had her come in with Coach Johnny Harris, that was a really exciting day. Love the family connections. Really was sad to see her go into the portal, but she comes back out and stays with the Tigers. She made the announcement this week. You want to talk about big wins? When there's a big exodus happening and you're the first one to come back out of that, if any are going to, that speaks a lot to not only her maturity of saying, let me just see what my options are.
Yeah.
Let me see what's out there. But I love this place. This is where my family has ties. And if I think it makes sense, let me come back and lead the way, lead the charge. That's got to win her a lot of points for in Coach Vickers' eyes and then Auburn women's basketball as well.
Oh, I certainly think so. And I think I was very excited to see that. I think she's an incredibly talented player. Obviously, like you said, took the opportunity to see what else she has out of there. Some of her former teammates have gone on to other SEC schools, other women's basketball powerhouses in Baylor. And so there were certainly probably opportunities for her. However, a native of Auburn, Alabama, a star at Auburn High School, would not have been shocked for her to say, I'm going to step out on my own, kind of be my own person, do my own thing. Ends up deciding to stay home and play for Coach Vickers and stay in Neville Arena. So couldn't be more excited for her. I think she's going to be a pivotal piece of that team. Absolutely.
And that, folks, is our Portal-palooza.
You missed me doing that earlier.
I did miss that, and kind of glad I did. So I don't know where to go from here on that one. That'll do it for episode 122 of the Auburn Experience podcast. We thank you for joining us, whether you watch live or you're catching the replay on any format. Thank you for being here with us today. If you want to keep up with me, please do so on X at Kyle Loomis 24. Where can they find you, sir?
Yeah, on X, on Instagram, at Austin G. Scott. Happy Easter, folks. Hope you had an incredible day. If you have not found a relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Kyle and I would love to talk to you about it at any time on any of those platforms. Just hit us up.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And thank you for sharing that once again at the end of the show. Hope everybody had a happy Easter and remembers the reason for this holiday. Thank you guys for tuning in once again. Till we talk to you again. War Eagle.
War Eagle.
All right, folks, that's the show. A little bit longer one. And Austin,
that was long.
He probably needs to get out of here. So I will give you the floor for anything you want to close out with. For you,
thank you, sir.
I'll stay around.
Had a great day. Hope you did too. Where'd you go eat for your lavish Easter lunch?
Was in Birmingham at Jefferson's, a little sports bar. That my brother. I went to visit my brother's church. He's a assistant children's.
Oh yeah. At my mom's church.
Oh yeah, at the Church of the almost the Church of the Highlands at Valleydale Church.
Yes.
So got to go visit that for the first time. My mom didn't know I was going to do that. She was coming to see him anyway. So we surprised.
You and my mom were in the same vicinity. How about that?
I was also in the same vicinity as one of our favorite radio hosts out there. So,
yes,
didn't see either of them, but
that's very true.
It's out there as well. So anything else, sir, before you get out of here?
I think I'm all good. War Eagle, everybody.
All right. War Eagle. Thanks for hanging out with us again.
See ya.
All right. You're stuck with me, folks, for the rest of the show. We have our Q&A time. We are a little bit extended on our normal time, but I do want to maybe go back through some of the things that maybe you mentioned or asked throughout the show. If you've got anything that you'd like to bring up, do so now. There's no really set time limit for our Q&A, but don't waste the opportunity to get your voice heard a little bit here. Let me do the rundown for you of stuff that you need to know about. Thank you once again for being here. We do these most Sunday nights, and I don't really have a plan to miss one upcoming anytime soon. So I think we should be pretty good on that front. So I hope that you're making it on your calendars, 9 Eastern time, Auburn Experience show. Watch the sausage be made live and join us in this Q&A time. If you like other scheduled content, we're in a pretty regular schedule right now. Earlier, I did mention on some other shows that I would not be here for this Wednesday night. Well, that is incorrect because Kyle had all his schedule really messed up. The Auburn Family Night, the best night of the week for some people out there, the granddaddy show, as some call it. It's our live call-in show and chat. We'll talk about anything and everything Auburn. Join us on Wednesday at 9 Eastern time. We love hearing from you, the Auburn family. Do not miss it. It is a good time. Other scheduled content, we do TikTok live streams. That's not really that scheduled, but those are midday some point on TikToks. Plenty of videos are going to be coming out this week. They've left me a lot more commitment and transfer portal videos to do the rest of this week. We've got some content coming out from all of that. Just because things are slowly winding down in the athletic calendar year doesn't mean that there's plenty of that to talk about and plenty more in the Auburn Experience. So I hope that you're following, subscribing, all of that stuff. Plenty of things to do. Check out the links in our description on YouTube. And if you ever need help, just hit us up at Kyle Loomis at E2CNetwork.com. I'd be happy to get you any links. What else? Anything else out there that you would like to discuss? Final commentary, things like that. I can certainly, looking back through our stream, we had plenty of check-ins and well wishes for Easter and all of that. Certainly, we are going to talk about that whenever we get the opportunity to. And I hope you all had a fabulous Easter from so many of you guys that said so throughout the stream and checked in with us for that. This is from WT earlier. He said, making the Final Four is the benchmark of being a great team. You want to win it all, but the Final Four shows that greatness, and I would add that you belong in that narrative. Even if it's an upstart team that was a lower seed, you made it through that gauntlet to get there. That proves that you deserve to be part of that history and that story. And not that you don't if you're not in the Final Four, but that really solidifies your place in that story. Also from WT, Chad Baker-Mazara going to the portal hurt greatly. He's a really good player, and I wish him all the best of what he gave us. Certainly, I think, and this was related from Devin too, talking about the portal and stuff like that. You know, there's been a lot of reports, and I would say from some very reputable people and sources out there about what the reasoning behind this is, and it does seem like it is money. I just would really caution folks. Some of our, and I know I'm a broken record on this, guys. I get it. Some of our behavior online towards these guys, you know, a lot of people, the same people that will whine about loyalty or lack thereof as they perceive it in some Auburn players when they leave, will be the first ones to show disloyalty when they're not doing what you want them to do, aka Peyton Thorne. So my request is to y'all, just be the best representatives Auburn can be. Don't worry. All you can control is yourself. You can't control what a player does, a coach does, things like that. Chad has done so much for this team. Is he a little bit of a crazy fool sometimes? Yes, he is. But I love our little crazy fools. And when they're wrong, we'll talk about it and certainly express our displeasure with it. But when they deserve to have our support, certainly they should be given that in equal doses as well. What else we got going on here? Anything else in the chat that I didn't mention? Some people wanted us to talk about football recruiting, and we got to that. So I hope that you enjoyed that portion of it. Corey's asking, when does the portal close? I don't like having so many portal windows. I don't either. It's very confusing. You know, on that note, Corey, what I am hoping personally is this. I don't trust Washington for anything. I don't care who's in power. I don't think that's really going to make a hill of beans, although I do appreciate the efforts being made by Coach Pearl and others trying to get some resolutions, the NCAA to do something. My hope is that in like the next 5 years, all of this will have been figured out. Solutions will at least be started, it will have already been implemented, and the effects of it will have started to trickle down. But certainly, whether it's NIL, the transfer portal, windows, things like that, I just hope that there will be some standardization to this, because once that happens, you're going to see everything else kind of settle out, and we won't see situations like the Nico story at Tennessee as much, because people are going to know what they can and can't get away with. It is the Wild West, and I know it's frustrating, but at some point we got to stop complaining about it and just realize that's the world we're in, until the entities, or the phrase that people like to use, the powers that be, actually do something about it. So That is my soapbox or my TED Talk for the day, and I hope that you enjoyed it. A little follow-up here from Devin says, I don't fault CBN for taking advantage of what was in front of him. NIL has been handled so poorly from the jump, and we are seeing the results. Certainly. I think a lot of us act like we wouldn't do the same in their situations, and I think that's a little bit quick to say that. You never know what somebody's story is. You never know what they're dealing with. Never know what they are trying to work through, work for. And we assume a lot because we see a character that they might put on in several 40-second windows and whatever is shared on social media. So a lot of assumptions are made sometimes. And I just laugh when I hear people complaining about loyalty in college athletes when they will be the first ones to be disloyal when they don't meet their criteria of what they think should be what's successful for them. With that, let's end it right there. Episode 122, our recording, our live Q&A. I'd really appreciate you guys being here, first of all, whether you're live replay, but also hanging out with us at the end too. And we had a great crowd tonight. As always, we'd love for you to continue to smash the like button, the share button if you haven't done that. And please do invite people to be here. Summer is a great time to start getting people into the fold, continue to build this little family into the biggest little family within the Auburn family. We appreciate you guys so much. I do. Austin does. All of the E2C Network family and friends do. Until we talk to you again. War Eagle.